Okay, last week we looked at the Declaration of Independence a little bit. We'll have a quiz on Friday, and it'll include information on the Declaration of Independence. So just a quick review over the big ideas from the Declaration of Independence. All right, Declaration of Independence. So, July 4th, 1776, it's written, declares independence of the American colonies from Great Britain, establishes the United States of America as a country. But it's done in the middle of a war. The war started in 1775. A year later, the Declaration of Independence is written, but the war isn't over officially until 1783. So that's going to be 7 more years until that's officially over and our independence would officially be won. However, the purpose of the Declaration of Independence, besides just declaring independence, is to give the reasons why we are leaving Great Britain. You saw the reading of the Declaration of Independence video last week. It gives a bunch of grievances or complaints against the British government, all the reasons why. But it also established some of the ideals that Americans believed government should be founded on to set the stage for future government documents like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that are actually going to put on paper the rules for our country. But so those ideals that the Americans at the time believed government should be founded on. One is the idea of unalienable rights. You might also think of that as the term natural rights from last year by John Locke when you learned about the Enlightenment. But in the Declaration of Independence, that famous phrase that you remember, all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So those basic rights everybody has, at least all men have, in the writing at the time of the Declaration of Independence. But the Declaration of Independence is establishing that idea that unalienable rights are a basic principle that should be followed by any government. Another Enlightenment idea was the idea of the social contract. That would be seen in the idea of consent of the people. In the same paragraph as that last quote from the Declaration, it reads, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, meaning we, the people, give the leaders their power. We elect them. If they're not doing a good job, the simplest, way to deal with that is we can elect a different person in the next election, or we can protest against them, or we can, in some places you can have what's called a recall election. But the people in power only have power because of us. It's not because they were born into it. It's not because they used force to take over it like a dictator would. The idea that the government gets its power from the people is a basic principle or a basic ideal that our country is founded on, which shows up in the Declaration of Independence. And then kind of just going along with those equality of rights for all citizens, that's that, going back to that, those natural rights people have, idea, the unalienable rights that people have. Again, Declaration of Independence, 1776, in reality, that all citizens is really only going to mean all men, all white men. Then over time, rights would be extended to African Americans, to women. But even to this day, it's still a hot button issue, as far as equality for people, all people. But that's an ideal, even if it's not exactly worked out in practice, an ideal that is put in the Declaration by our founders of our country. And then the last bullet point there, responsibility of the government to protect the rights of its citizens. Again, kind of going with that social contract idea that the government is there, but it's there to protect the people. It's there to serve the people. All those basic rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Again, we have those basic rights. If the government isn't protecting those rights, if they're infringing upon or trying to take away those rights, we have every reason to get rid of that government. That's, again, a basic ideal that our country's been founded upon in the Declaration of Independence. So those are the basic, that's the foundation for our country. That's all the Declaration is. It declares independence from Britain. We're an independent nation now, and also kind of gives some basic foundation. But it does not say who's going to be in charge, how that person is going to be elected, anything about laws or what laws can or can't be passed. That is not a declaration. It just gives that foundation. In the next couple of videos you'll watch here today, you'll see what some of those first documents actually look like that actually put laws on paper.